You are watching an episode in our Landlording A to Z series, where we walk you through the steps, skills, and challenges involved with residential rental real estate investing. We share our expert advice, including the tips, tricks, and strategies we've learned over years of managing rental property. Please subscribe to our channel to get notified each time a new episode comes out, and please like and share our content with people you know who might be interested. Thanks for watching.
Hello, you have Chris and Eli here from Landlord Gurus, and today we are doing another chapter in our Landlording A to Z series where we walk through step by step our process for managing properties. So today we're going to talk about getting your rental property ready to rent. So, we've already covered the decision to begin with. Is it a good idea for you to purchase and invest in rental property? How you selected the property? These are prior episodes. So today you've selected that, and we're just going to go through some ways to kind of get it ready. If it's not turnkey, there may be some changes, and and this will vary depending on whether or not it's occupied currently or not. Okay. So here, a couple of things we're going to walk through today is making it appealing. Some of the top tips for just giving it some zip where renters will want to live there. Setting up for ease of management so that it's easy for you once you have purchased and have your renters in place to manage it. That's another episode that we did prior, was whether or not to manage yourself or to hire a property manager. So this is assuming that you have decided that you want to manage yourself. So you want to make it easy. And then getting things set up for utilities, efficiency in terms of utilities and operating the property, just essentially make it easy and make it less expensive to operate. Getting the property set up for security so that everybody feels safe and you have ways of making sure that your property and your tenants are safe. We'll go into what amenities we recommend that you include in order to make your property the most appealing. And then briefly, we'll touch on pets and how that might figure into profitability and whether or not you might configure your property differently if you're having pets as opposed to not having it. So Chris is going to launch into those top tips to boost your rental's appeal.
All right. Hey there. It's also maybe a good time for a reminder to everybody out there to subscribe and like this video and share it with anybody else who might be in the same situation. So we'll start off with the top tips to boost your rental's appeal. So what we're talking about here is just some basic kind of rental property renovations that can make your rental more desirable and appeal to more potential tenants and justify charging market rent or whatever rent that you're going to decide to charge for the place. And these renovations don't necessarily have to break the bank, so don't worry about that. The best renovations for a rental property, generally, they have several long-term benefits for landlords that allows you to increase your rent rates and your profitability. And it can even mean less upkeep and less expenses for you over the long run. So we'll start with fix or replace broken fixtures. Generally, that's pretty self-explanatory. Fix the broken dishwashers, the broken lights, leaky taps, etc. You can consider upgrading your light fixtures to LED lighting. That tends to boost the property value, and it does reduce energy costs. So if that's something that you're paying, if you're paying utilities, that's going to save you money down the road as well.
Yeah, right. And as part of these updates that Chris is talking about, just when you have the opportunity, you can really change the feel of a property by changing the light fixtures, gold-plated light fixtures, for example, even door numbers and lighting and plumbing fixtures. It'll cost some money, but it can really, refresh and make a unit feel modern instead of dated and kind of crusty.
Right. Yeah, and it's pretty easy to do as well. You can also upgrade flooring. So at minimum, clean those carpets professionally, get them steam cleaned. Or better yet, we recommend replacing that carpet with easy to maintain flooring, such as hardwood, luxury vinyl tile, whatever, all the different types of products that are out there right now that you can replace those carpets with.
Right. And I was talking to somebody just recently about how, strictly speaking, a lot of places require you to replace the carpet every 5 years. Or if you have an existing tenant, it's considered worn out after 5 years. So at this point, I think carpet is a poor choice because it doesn't present well once it gets a little bit older. And at this point, they're engineered flooring materials, either wood-based or, like Chris said, there are a lot of vinyl-based flooring materials that look like natural materials. You can get a great variety of effects. So there's something good for pretty much any room in a very cost-effective and easy to maintain product.
Yep. Next, we'll want to modernize those kitchens and bathrooms. So focus on upgrading appliances, painting those cabinets occasionally, maybe new countertops, or at least cabinet hardware, such as the knobs and things like that in the kitchen. In the bathrooms, maybe get new faucets, new, cabinets, and, and again, same thing, or at least hardware for those cabinets, things like that.
Yeah, and Chris touched on appliances, and stainless steel appliances are kind of a gimme in my mind. Yeah, they're not a whole lot more expensive than a white or a black appliance anymore, and it's an easy thing that renters like, and it pops right there in your advertising. So I think that's an easy choice. Also, solid surface countertops are a good choice. They're not inexpensive, but they do hold up really well. They're very appealing, and nobody wants tile countertops with grout anymore.
Right.
So I find that a good upgrade.
Great. Yeah, also paint those walls. One of the easier improvements you can make generally, is they get dirty pretty easily, they get worn pretty easily and quickly. So, every, 2-3 turnovers, paint the walls. I recommend you stick with light neutral colors, something that's gonna kind of be appealing to, or at least not offensive to people. Maybe consider using the same color of paint throughout the entire unit, or even in all your units if you've got multi-unit property, just for the ease of keeping track of what paint in what unit, and for those touch-ups. And sometimes you gotta repaint a wall. You don't have to go searching for different color paint colors or get stuff matched.
Exactly.
You can also improve landscaping. So, it's the first thing that people see when they walk up to view your unit. And, first impressions matter. So focus on curb appeal, things like yards and landscaping and outdoor living spaces these days are really, something appealing to people, patios, decks, things like that.
Yeah, and I'd say with an emphasis on simplicity, maximum value. A lawn, while it's kind of problematic in terms of water in some parts of the country, it's relatively easy to take care of, and then kind of strategic planting areas. A fresh layer of mulch goes a long way towards making a property look tidy and well kept. And that, for example, will also keep down weeds and reduce the amount of labor that it takes to maintain the yard. So just being smart about how you landscape, for appeal and ease of maintenance.
Yeah. Next thing we're going to talk about is whether to allow pets or not. And I'm sort of putting this here into improvements that you can make to your property when getting it ready for renting. But it's one thing to consider at this point is whether you're going to allow pets or not, because that's going to affect all the things that you do with the rest of the setup. So we've talked about allowing pets and stuff like that before. Generally, a lot of people have pets nowadays. So by allowing pets, that sort of increases your pool of potential renters. You're not cutting off a pretty significant pool of renters by not allowing pets. So that's something to consider. Allow pets. What it does allow you to also do is you can charge pet rent. We've also talked about pet deposits and things like that as well. So by allowing a pet, you might be able to increase your income. And then if you are going to allow pets, then this is the time to consider things like pet friendly landscaping, fenced yards, the types of materials that you put inside. You might not want carpet. If you're going to have cats, you probably don't want carpet. So all that kind of stuff is going to affect, what you put in and what you need to do to set up. And then lastly, with this getting things set up, is when you're about ready to list your unit, consider professional photography. Nice professional photos and video. There's a lot of video nowadays on the listings. So those things go a long ways when potential tenants are scrolling through those listing platforms like Zillow and whatever. They're kind of just going through real fast. And if you've got nice photos, it stands out pretty quickly. It's probably worthwhile.
Yeah, people have to stop to look before they follow through on anything. So you got to catch them with the photos.
Yeah. So we talk about all these renovations. We've got content on our website, and we'll post the link for you guys to check out as well.
Right. And then I want to cover just getting the property set up so that it's easy to manage. We've touched on some of these things, but some of the ways that you can configure your property so that it is efficient and is as easy to manage as possible are to use smart locks, either smart or just coded. They don't have to be Wi-Fi enabled. I use tons of keypad deadbolts that are not Wi-Fi enabled. It allows me to have a code that I can give to people to access. On occasion, I've done self-guided tours, or a vendor that needs to go and repair something, I can give them access. Like Chris mentioned, you want to ideally want to get everything painted and so that it's nice and tidy and clean, and that it's in colors that you know how to patch. You've probably got the can of paint right there, and that it's very easy to clean things up when you need to. And just choosing durable, cleanable surfaces like solid surface countertops. Nobody likes the tile and grout, like I said. Electric cooktops are not a great choice because they, stuff burns onto them. So there are other options, just a coil, or you can do induction or gas. Vinyl flooring is very durable these days, and there's a lot of it that looks pretty good. So those are some ways that you can just kind of set your property up in terms of materials so it's easy to take care of. And then what I often do is to have a storage area that has coded access where I have some basic tools, a vacuum, broom, screwdriver, pliers, those types of things. If a mower is needed on site or other particular tools, I'll have that there so that I can give it to people who need it. And it just makes it easy to keep things rolling without having to go to the property all the time.
Yeah.
And kind of in keeping with that same theme, setting the property up for efficiency in terms of utilities and operation is invaluable, I think. So if you can apply some strategy to setting up the systems of your property. Landscaping we've touched on, consider taking out landscaping that requires a lot of watering. It uses a lot of water, and then if it has to be done manually, that labor is expensive. Limited irrigation to areas that have the most aesthetic bang for the buck, an entryway, that type of thing. There are lots of good automated sprinkler or irrigation systems now. I use one that's Wi-Fi enabled, so I can control it from wherever I am, and that it doesn't water when it's raining. And like I said, mulch areas brings down weeding and labor there. And then remove high maintenance landscapes in places where water is precious, like lawns. Pools are nice, but often they're very expensive to keep up. More and more people are putting in turf. I have mixed feelings about it, but it is maintenance free and doesn't require any water. Yeah. But make sure not to let the cost savings take precedence over, how attractive your property is. Make that balance carefully. Err on the side of aesthetics when you can. So.
Yeah. But there are a lot of options out there that you can do that still look good while making it pretty easy to operate, for sure.
Exactly. Yep. And then in terms of utilities, there's a lot of expense in terms of utilities, and it's highly variable depending on how people live. They can use a lot of water or electricity. So to the extent that you can divide utilities up so that people are paying either for what they use, ideally, or at least a set fee to cover utilities, so it's not all on you. It's a good idea. Water is a major expense, and it's easy to miss, when it's being wasted. So we've talked about irrigation, but when you're going through a property to begin with, go through and check your toilets and faucets to make sure they're not leaking. Those little drips really add up. We will put leak detectors under sinks sometimes so that you get a drip there and the little alarm goes off. Check hose bibs for leaks. And in some cases, if you're in a high traffic area, consider putting like a little key knob on it instead of the a regular little top, so that people can't just come along and steal your water.
Right. Yeah.
Or steal it and
leave it on.
Leave it on, maybe even. Yeah. And then where it's feasible, physically separating the use of utilities, water, sewer, if you can, either through the companies themselves, or if you can apply metering devices so that you can tell who's using what, it really helps. Same with electricity. Shy of having new meters put in, there are add-on devices that are fairly easy, and then you can check those each month and bill for them. So, there are lots of options out there, and more coming along all the time. There are analog meters and Wi-Fi. So lots of good options, and every property has its own opportunities and limitations in terms of this type of thing. So you just want to do what you can.
Yeah, and again, we've got an article on our site that talks about separating utilities or applying what's called RUBS, RUBS. But I'll put the link for that as well, so you can go check it out and learn more. So the next thing you want to think about when setting up your property is security. These days, well, all the time, tenants are looking for a home that's safe and secure, right? This includes the individual unit, as well as, if it's in a larger multi-unit building, they're looking for security in the whole building and the grounds and all the common areas as well. That's important. So, generally we think that investing in crime prevention, when you're on your property, not only helps kind of reduce the potential legal liability that you might have if anything were to happen on your property, but it also signals to the tenants and prospective tenants that you as the landlord, you don't take that responsibility lightly. That you do, place importance on tenant safety and security. So some of the things the major areas to focus on, we won't go through them all, but sort of the major ones: entrances and doors. So make sure you got things like deadbolts, locks, maybe smart doorbell systems, maybe a smart common area entry system, either intercom or video where tenants can, buzz people in who are authorized to get in, that sort of thing. Check the windows, make sure the locks are functioning, or that you have security bars or even contact sensors, so that if the window is open, the tenant gets notified or you get notified. Similarly, alarms and security systems, make sure, you might want to invest in those depending on where you are. Motion sensors, things like, outdoor lights that pop on when someone might be prowling around. Getting the proper lighting, not just the motion sensor lighting, but just proper lighting and enough lighting so that people feel safe, that there's enough lighting outside, that it's not dark in the entryways, that kind of thing. And lastly, depending on where you are and what type of property this is, maybe personnel, security personnel is in order. Obviously that is a very, big choice, big decision, but, in some cases it might be necessary. So things to consider, but definitely don't take it lightly.
Yeah, and those decisions will all be property specific, and property and location specific. So, okay, I'm going to touch on a few of the amenities that we feel are most powerful in terms of attracting good tenants. Getting it optimized, you want to be able to rent your places quickly and for good rent. So we've identified 8 amenities we think that most renters will be looking for. Anytime you're able to give access to outdoor space, that's a benefit. Any kind of balcony or deck, a common area yard, or a little garden, any little bit, people appreciate being able to get outside. If you do choose to allow pets, then an area that people can take their pets to relieve themselves, or in a bigger property, I guess it could be a whole pet area or pet washing facilities. Think about your clientele and what they might like. You can do high-speed internet for the whole building if you feel like you're going to be able to get more rent out of it than what it costs you to provide it.
Mm-hmm.
Air conditioning is increasingly important. Unfortunately, it seems like heat waves are more common. So even here in Seattle, we're getting people asking about air conditioning more and more. Parking, transportation options in the cities, parking's scarce, but so if you can offer it, then it's attractive, and you can also charge for it.
Yep.
Yeah, this is an important one with so much being delivered to the home these days. Package delivery, kiosks, or a common area, or some kind of a secured area is really valuable, because just having the packages left on the street doesn't really work very well.
Yep.
And last, smart home technologies. Depending on the property, you might have kind of a video intercom or keypad entries, smart locks. One that I've put in one property more recently, an app-enabled laundry service. So I took just a coin-operated washer and dryer and converted them, so now they can use an app and they don't have to have any quarters. And it doesn't even require Wi-Fi. It's all Bluetooth. So yeah, it's pretty slick. And I don't have to go collect quarters either.
Right. You don't get
somebody else.
Jammed machines and things like that too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then we do have an article that covers a lot of these amenities as well. So we'll post that for you, so you can go read further on that as well. And yeah, those are some things that are important.
Right. Yeah. And definitely, you have to consider, your space and cost and land use requirements for things like that, all those things you might need to add. So obviously you could do it all, but you're going to have to consider and think about what's worth it or not, based on the property and where you are. So yeah, that basically covers, all that we've got here as far as making your property ready to rent. But it's a good time when you just take ownership, especially if it's unoccupied at the time, or you're converting, your house into a rental, things like that. It's a good time to kind of get things set up properly in the beginning, so that you're not trying to kind of deal with it a year down the road, or if the place is partially occupied and you have to move somebody out or move them to a different place, so that you can manage repairs and renovations. So yeah, so if you like, again, if you like what you see here, subscribe to the channel and get notifications for the next one. As we go through the Landlording A to Z series, we'll take you through the next steps. I believe next we'll be talking about finding that tenant for your property. But yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks. See you next time.